If you're like me, you're probably wondering how you're supposed to afford the cost to file bankruptcy, especially when, inflation's been running around and it's already difficult to stay on your normal bills. And so I want to help you understand what the costs to file bankruptcy are, and a slew of other things like how to pay for attorney fees when they may seem a little bit too expensive. So let's get into it. Hi, my name is Justin, and today I wanted to provide an inside view of how much it costs to file bankruptcy, which will hopefully help you understand the process a little bit better. Welcome to the Ascend Finance YouTube channel, where we take complex topics such as the cost of filing bankruptcy and simplify them into understandable human language. If you're struggling with debt, you may be already getting a lot of ads telling you what you should and what you shouldn't do, and it can be overwhelming. Like, how much does it even cost to file bankruptcy? How does it even work? And all these other things that are just kind of compounding and making it even potentially more difficult to figure out what to do. And so we want to help answer these questions simply. And one thing we built actually is a free bankruptcy cost estimator that's based on your zip code. We put it in the description below so you can check it out and estimate your costs completely for free. And it'll help you understand, based on your specific zip code, what the cost to file would be around and based on your area. On the other things, we're going to help you understand whether there is a limit to file, right? Do you have enough debt to file bankruptcy, as well as other alternatives, right? So just gonna go through understanding the costs, do you have enough debt to file, and the alternatives to file bankruptcy. Now, before I go too much further, I completely understand that everyone's situation is unique, right? So if I don't answer any, a specific question that you have, leave a comment down below. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. You can always just call me. You can call us here at 833-272-3631. You can ask me directly what your question is, and I'll try to provide you a specific answer. So let's get right into it. Okay, let's go through the cost of filing bankruptcy. So there's a couple options. Generally, there's a Chapter 7 and a Chapter 13. To simplify things today, I'm just gonna be covering, Chapter 7 bankruptcy. So how much does it cost to file Chapter 7 bankruptcy? So let's go through kind of all the different costs and fees and things that you would come across when filing a Chapter 7. Most people choose to file bankruptcy with an attorney. So I want to help you kind of under those most expensive costs to least expensive costs. One thing again, to easier break down for your specific case, you can always take our calculator, the Chapter 7 bankruptcy cost calculator. It's in the description. It'll help you understand the cost to file bankruptcy. It'll even help you estimate whether you even qualify to file, right? So sometimes based on your income, you may not qualify. So you can take the calculator, estimate qualification, costs, pros and cons, all of that. But let's get into kind of like the high level breakdown of everything. So first, the bankruptcy attorney fees. So depending on a whole slew of things, which I'll touch on in a second, the fees will range from generally $500 to $3,000, right? So the factors are generally based on the complexity of someone's case, right? So if there are no assets, it should be a relatively simple Chapter 7, and that should be a cheaper case. But again, it depends where you live too. So, the location, the attorney's experience, and then really ultimately, I think it really finds itself within the complexity of the case. Now, with that said, most attorneys will allow payment plans, but the thing is, most times the fee does need to be paid in full before the attorney can even file the case, but they do allow you to pay it over time most times. When you're looking around to find an attorney that fits the right mold for you, just understand that most attorneys will provide free consultations. So you should be able to speak with multiple and compare your options and basically find an attorney that's the most affordable, but also that seems like they are the best fit for you. You're not required to filing bankruptcy with an attorney, so you can do it on your own, but it's important to understand whether it makes sense, really coming down to the complexity of your case. So, it may make sense to speak with an attorney for free to understand how complex your situation is, or you can even speak with me and I can help you kind of understand that, and you can see whether it makes sense to file on your own or file with an attorney. There are specific court fees that you really generally can't get around for the most part, which is like the filing fee. Generally that's about $338. It doesn't matter which state you're in, it's pretty much that for every single state. Now sometimes you can actually get that waived, basically you're filing like a fee waiver. For that, I think you basically have to be under the poverty guidelines for your state, which I'll put on the screen.
Just a heads up, this poverty guideline is for California. If you're curious about the guidelines for your state specifically, give us a call here. Thanks.
in here now. So if you are below it, you may be able to have the fee waived, but that would be something to look into as well. So also the credit counseling fees. So now that we touched on the bankruptcy attorney fees and the filing fee, there are credit counseling fees. These are relatively low in comparison to the other costs. This should be about $10 to $50. Most times the debtor, when they're filing bankruptcy, they do have to complete some sort of credit counseling course before the filing. I believe this has to be done within about 180 days before filing the Chapter 7. You will most likely need to use a company that has been approved by the trustee's office. But yeah, again, most times it's going to be between $10 and $50 for the credit counseling course. Okay, fourth, so there are credit report fees. So you're going to want to include all of the creditors on your bankruptcy forms. Generally, you don't have a choice. It's generally a good idea to review your credit reports to make sure that you have all the creditors and collection agencies included on the bankruptcy forms. You should be able to obtain free copies of your credit report every 12 months, and there's multiple ways to do that, which I can try to include in the description below as well. But if you have any questions, just give us a call, and I can try to point you in that direction of where to access a free credit report. Fifth, debtor education course. Again, this is going to be about $10 to $50 a well. After you file your Chapter 7, you actually must complete a second bankruptcy course. This is the debtor education course that's going to be taken from, again, another approved company. If you don't complete the course and file your certificate of completion before the deadline, the court actually may be able to deny your bankruptcy discharge. So just keep that in mind when you're going through the process. But like I said earlier, that should be similar, about $10 to $50. Okay, 6, miscellaneous costs. So this could range for a whole slew of things, but I would say on average about, could be $0 to $100 generally. That may be if you're filing your case without an attorney and you're responsible for the copy costs and the postage cost when you're required to send documents in. Also, think about maybe traveling, right? You're gonna have to travel to and from, and there may be parking fees, right? These are really granular things, but they're things to consider, and they kind of may encompass the total cost from starting the bankruptcy to getting it filed and being discharged from the debt. There is one meeting that you'll need to attend. It's the 341 meeting of creditors. Recently, a lot of this has been telephonic, but it's hard to say based on where you're at if it's in person or not. So keep in mind that it very well could be in person. And so, the mileage to that hearing location could be potentially significant. It just depends. So now that we kind of touched on the cost, I do want to help you understand whether you even have enough debt to file bankruptcy. Generally, there is no minimum debt amount that can potentially prevent you from filing, but it's important to keep in mind the costs and the benefit, right? So what I mean by that is if you owe $3,500 in unsecured debt and it's going to cost you $1,800 to file, it may not necessarily make sense, right? You may be able to just try to negotiate with the creditors directly instead or work out some sort of other arrangement. But ultimately, you know your situation best and what makes most sense for you. There's a lot of factors to consider, like a lawsuit, wage garnishment, if there's already a judgment, all of these different things that may pose someone to potentially want to file bankruptcy, even if the debt amount is a bit lower. But honestly, I would just give us a call here too. You can reach us at 833-272-3631. You can take the calculator as well. But basically, if you're not sure if you have enough debt to file bankruptcy, we're here. We can chat through it all. But kind of segueing into the next piece where I'm going to help you understand what the alternatives to bankruptcy are if it doesn't make sense to file. So let's go through that now. It may not necessarily make sense to file bankruptcy, right? So I want to help you understand a few different alternatives. One is debt management. Another one is debt settlement. So let's go with debt management first. So debt management's more geared towards folks that are hoping to basically create a more budget-based plan that will help them get out of unsecured credit card debt at a more reasonable rate. So debt management is where you work with generally a nonprofit, and they're called credit counseling agencies, and they're going to get the interest rates down on credit cards. So the goal generally is about 0 to 9% is what they're trying to get them down to. And so if you're finding that you're just paying towards interest each month, but you can afford the minimums for the most part, and you're just trying to figure out a way where you're able to pay towards principal and get out of this debt in 3, 4, 5 years comparatively to however long it's going to take paying minimums, it could be a decent option to consider. If that's not affordable enough, right? Let's say that just getting the interest rates down won't do the trick, or you mainly own You mainly owe personal loan debt, right? Where a credit counseling company may not work with those types of debt. You may want to consider debt settlement. Debt settlement is where a company, or this is something you could do yourself as well, but basically it's where it's the idea of negotiating debt down, and the goal is about 50%. So basically you're letting your accounts fall past due if they're not behind already, or if you see yourself having to fall behind. Basically you're negotiating on accounts past due. So when they're about 4 to 6 months behind, generally, the creditor may be more incentivized to settle. They may be more willing to take 50 cents on the dollar for the debt to get it resolved and move forward for many reasons. But there are risks involved with those kind of options, like the risk of being sued, the credit score impact, potentially the tax liability, right? There's a lot of different things to understand with that. I can give you kind of the nitty gritties of your specific situation. If you want to reach out to us, I can help you understand based on your creditor mix, your risk of being sued, whether it makes sense to do that comparatively to bankruptcy and debt management, all of those different pieces. But just to kind of give you an alternative, if you want to steer clear from bankruptcy and it makes sense and it's affordable, you can try to do debt settlement and try to get the accounts settled for less instead. Generally, it's going to be a monthly payment over about 4 or 5 years, just depending on how much debt there is and what the most affordable monthly payment would be for you. Okay, with that all said, circling back to the topic at hand, right? All-in cost of filing bankruptcy. So before you decide to file bankruptcy, it's really, really important that you understand the cost to file and whether it makes sense based on your debt amount and a whole slew of things. So I would say you can take our Chapter 7 bankruptcy cost calculator. It's gonna help you understand the cost to file bankruptcy and whether you even qualify based on your zip code and personalized data. It's also helpful, right, because it helps you evaluate other options. It'll help you compare and see the pros and cons of alternatives like debt management, debt settlement, and it'll help you just have a clear view of how things look. Thank you so much for watching. I definitely hope this video was helpful. If you do feel confused at all, feel free to take our calculator or give us a call here at 833-272-3631. I hope you have a great day.